Okay, it's a miserable wet afternoon. It's the 22nd of May 2014. Having made that short video about taking cuttings from dahlias, a couple of my friends asked if I was going to make a video of what happened next. How to grow the dahlia plants on, how to plant them out, support them, take the side shoots out of them, and so on and so forth, right through to flowering. Now what you must remember is that I'm growing dahlias for cutting for the house. I'm not growing them to exhibit them, so I may well touch on exhibiting dahlias, but I'm no expert and I don't grow them for that reason. So in the propagator, in the blue box, are some plants that I received in the mail about the second week in April. Now, when nurseries send out either plants or tubers, they have to be mindful of the weather. Now, these particular tubers were posted to me from Germany and took between 10 and 12 days to arrive. Now, in that time, of course, they could have been frosted. That would have killed them off, and of course the nursery would have received nasty urgent letters saying, I don't think very much of the quality of your plants, they're all dead when they arrived. So about the second week in April, these pot tubers arrived. They got funny little white sprouts on them where they'd started to chit. They looked a bit like potato chits. So it was a case of really getting them stuck in a box as quickly as possible, some compost around them and water them. So from the second week in April, and I was able to start taking cuttings from them on the 6th of May. Now they got going, became nice bushy plants. So I was able to take the cuttings as per the last video, and these are the results. Here is still in the propagator. The thing is, when you buy plants, you're quite excited about having new varieties, and you really want to have more than just the one plant. So one tuber, yes, I could have split the tuber down and set several bits of tuber as plants, but I obviously wanted to tip the shoots out and make cuttings of them. So here's the results. Now, having taken the cuttings, we then had a heat wave. So although this propagator is set at 18 degrees and usually has a roof on it, has a lid on to keep the moist air inside, we had a problem where everything was overheating in here. The heating element at the bottom was still on, obviously to sort of encourage roots to grow and so on, but unfortunately it got rather too warm in here, so we had a few casualties. Like this is obviously no good at all, it's just gone rotten. There's another one next to, look, that's just not taken, but some of these are okay. There are, I just can't really see them there, but there are roots showing at the bottom of the trays, so it was worth doing to get just a few more plants going, so that next year I'll have a choice of lots of different varieties. So I bought some tubers from the east side of Germany, and I also had some plants delivered to me from a British nursery, which I'll show you in just a minute. The rest of the greenhouse, let me just pan round, and you'll see there are still loads of plants in here. These are the plants that are left over from the cuttings that I took originally, and what I'm going to do is to pot those up so into decent sized pots so that they can go and live on the allotment and make pot tubers. Now, what is a pot tuber? If you think about when you plant a dahlia out in the garden or on the allotment or wherever, when you dig it up in the autumn, the roots have made enlarged well, what they call tubers. The roots have become enlarged and the whole thing is called a tuber. Now, a pot tuber, if we plant one of these small plants in a big plant pot, it will make a small tuber. Now, that small tuber can be kept in the same way over winter, and next spring, if you plant the tuber, put it in a tray, rather like I did those East German examples, it'll send up shoots and you can take cuttings then from next year. And it's really just a way of continuing, shall we say, to get as many plants as possible off your stock of tubers. There are some more cuttings going on just over here that I'm actually going to pot on and keep them. Hopefully they will make decent plants when I've taken them from here and put them in the polytunnel and nurtured them. But those are the results of some I've purchased in an auction and some plants that I've propagated on from the plants that I bought. So let's have a look at the ones that I bought in this country. This is the plot that I've reserved for my dahlias. I think I should probably get, I don't know, 40 plants on here, something like that. I should put a low fence around it to keep the rabbits out. But so tomorrow I'll come up, rotivate it, and we'll get on with planting it. Anyway, it's the 30th of May today, so as far as I'm concerned, it's a free-for-all for putting the dahlias out. Now I think we're finished with the frosts. It's still the 30th of May and we're on somebody else's plot. This is Paul's plot, showing his plants. Now, Paul had got his dahlias in the polytunnel, but a fortnight ago they were getting so big he thought he'd better put them out and chance the frosts, and luckily he's actually got away with it. So because Paul's going to be showing some of his dahlias, he's actually concentrated on really two separate dahlias. The first row here is Sir Alf Ramsey. The row in the middle is Barbary Pip, and then the row at the end there are all sorts of other different ones from the Barbary series of dahlias. As you can see, Paul's using a traditional method of using 3 canes to each plant, 3 4-foot canes to each plant, and then you'll also notice that each row in the case of these first 2 rows has a label on the top of the first plant to say what they are. In this case it's Sir Alf Ramsey. It's not going to focus on it, but never mind. It's Sir Alf Ramsey, and as I say, Barbary Pip in the middle, and then a mixture of all sorts, but mainly Barbarys on the right hand side. So he's got away with it, he's lucky, the frost never came. We're nearly into June, so he's nearly into safety, but as you can see his plants are very well ahead. Still the 30th of May and we're on somebody else's plot now. This plot belongs to Ron and Les, and as you can see there's already some progress been made towards planting a few dahlias out. Now these are all seedlings as far as I can see, the produce of some work last year, just coming to fruition. Now this first bed, and then as we pan round and look up the allotment, you can see there's going to be quite a few flowers planted out in here, and then later in the season there will be an awning put over the roof, put over the beds, to keep the rain from damaging the flowers. We'll go and have a look from the other end anyway. At the other end of the same plot, Les has started to plant out some of his poms. There's Goethe Twilight there and Moor Place I recognise, but again it was a case of the plants were becoming quite big, which I think is something that everybody suffered with this year because of the mild spring and the mild winter. Everything seems to have grown quite well. So here's the other end of the plot, and as you can see the large cover goes on later on in the season, and that supports it. So the very beginnings of the season, and over this weekend I'll be putting my own dahlias out, so we'll show some film of that as well. Quick view inside my polytunnel. These are my dahlias that are ready for planting out. With any polytunnel you tend to use it to get ahead of the season. So on the left here are some cauliflowers that are being cut at the moment. Part way down some tomatoes that are well in flower. I always grow my sweet corn indoors because I can get 2 crops off those in here. And here's the rest of the dahlias over on this side here. Now the polytunnel is quite a big one. It's 24 feet by 14, so quite a decent size, but as you can see it's fairly crowded. 31st of May and time to start planting out. I've rotivated the plot this morning. Last year this space actually laid fallow. I'd got a lot of convolvulus in it. It had always been there since I took the plot over, so I thought I'd wage war on it, and I finally managed to get rid of it. So last year it didn't grow anything. I put the contents of one of the big compost bins on here, and I've rotivated it 2 or 3 times. It's been rotivated this morning, so we can start planting. The wire that I'm using this year is some second-hand fencing from a farm. I don't really know what it is. It was actually used on a sheep farm, but the difference normally between sheep and pig fencing is that pig fencing has smaller gaps at the bottom to stop the piglets from getting out, but this one seems to be oblongs rather than squares. The old sheep wire used to be round, of course, round holes, but anyway, it doesn't matter. We've got lengths of wire laid out. I shall plant through those, through the length of wire, and then raise the whole thing up. As the plants grow on, I shall raise the wire up to act as supports, but I'll show you that obviously later on. Last year I used 4-foot canes, and to be honest it was a bit of a nuisance, or they were a bit of a nuisance, in that you got amongst the plants and picking flowers and so on. You have to be ever so careful not to stab your eye and so on and so forth. Yes, I know you can get caps for the end of them to make them safe, but it was all a bit of a mess really. So I thought this year I'll try using wire. So let's see how we get on. Some growers swear by using canes. Some swear by using wire. Let's just see how easy it is. You've seen Paul's plot, that's got canes, and you've seen Ron and Les's plot, they're using wire, and they've used wire for years. So let's just see how easy it is. Okay, next will be planting out. Right, so let's start planting a few dahlias out. Okay, we started off with a decent sized hole that'll take the root ball quite nicely. Now I'm going to put some feed in the bottom of here. I use a mixture of rock dust and a very good quality general fertiliser. I suppose the nearest thing to the fertiliser is Vitax Q4, but as that's so expensive I actually buy an equivalent one from my local allotment shop. So quick handful of that in the bottom of each hole, give it a good dig in, mix it into the bottom, and let's have the first plant out of its pot. There we go, got a jolly good root ball on it, so into the hole we go with it. Now these are both Barberry drum, the other one's over there. As I think I said earlier, I'm going to be planting 3 of each variety. Okay, so there we are. Now, padded down, what I want to end up with is the plant in a very slight depression, so that during the summer, when I come to water it, and I will water them later just to settle them in, they'll actually sit in a damp area. The water will run into the very slight depression there. Now, next we need to put the labels next to them. Okay, so I'm using wire for this. If I want something to stay on there, I just put a twist of wire onto it. I have tried string of various sorts. The polypropylene tends to go all fragile and fragment over the summer, and if I use ordinary twine, you know, string type stuff, the birds are a bit of a pest with that, pinching it. So I've settled on marking them and tying the markers on with wire. So that's 2 done. Got about another 50 to do this afternoon, and that's all there is to it. This wire, I'll support that, and when I've planted this lot out, I shall probably just raise it probably 3 or 4 inches, so that the dahlias will then grow through it, but I'll show you that a little later on. That's the main bulk of the planting done. So it's 3 rows of 18, and there's 1 small row next to the water trough where I've got 1 or 2 still left at home that are a bit small to plant out, so that'll be the experimental bed for this year. The wire, I've put in some fencing pins. They're just bent metal, what they used to use for hanging lamps around roadworks, as you can see with the hook on the top. But if you put fencing pins into eBay, you'll see what comes up. And I've used zip ties to fix the wire netting to the fence pins. So as the plants grow, I shall be able to pull the wire up higher. It just slide up on the pins. So that's it, time for a cup of coffee. Right, still the 13th of June. This is back on Paul's plot again, just to see how his plants are coming on. Now remember, these were planted out in the 3rd week of April, so quite a bit earlier, 2 weeks earlier than would be normal. And as you can see, they're looking very, very well indeed. I was talking to him yesterday, and he says they've been fed. He uses a high nitrogen feed, a liquid feed, and they've also been dressed with rock dust and the good old Vitax Q4 equivalent. Paul has also sprayed for aphids, just a very, very light dilute spray, just to preempt. I think he's perhaps hoping that the aphids will go to somebody else's rather than stop on his plot. But as you can see, coming on very well. They've been in the ground about a month. Okay, back to my plants. 13th of June. These were planted out, as you know, on the 1st of June, so not quite a fortnight they've been in the ground. We've had a lot of thunderstorms in those intervening days, so it has been very wet up here, and as you can see, it's pounded the soil down. Just one of the plants doesn't seem to be going very well, which is the one that I'm focused on now. So let's just have a look at all the rest of them. They all seem to have got established quite nicely. I think I can probably take the planks away now, because I won't be paddling the soil down too hard. It was very wet when I put the plants in on the 1st of June, and it has been very wet since. But it seems to have come out nice and warm now, so I'll go through with a hoe, loosen all the soil up over the weekend, feed them. Again, I shall use the the Vitax Q4. Bloodfish and bone would be alright actually, if I'd got some. Use the Vitax equivalent, and a bit of rock dust. I shall go around each of them when I've hoed, and I shall give them a high nitrogen feed as well. So we'll see what they look like in a couple of weeks' time. Right, still the 13th of June, and now we're on a plot that you haven't seen before. These plants belong to Terry. They've only been out just over a week actually. Unlike Paul, he's only growing a few varieties. He's growing 3. The ones at the back are Marston George. The middle row is Jodie Wilkinson, and of course everybody's favourite in the front are Sir Alf Ramsey. Now you can see that these plants are a little bit further behind than the plots we've looked at earlier, but not to worry, they will catch up. And as you can see, these are being grown without being pinched out early like I have and like Paul has, so that the Marston George are quite a tall spindly plant, and I would imagine that he's probably going to pinch those out about the 3rd week of June. Now, talking to different people about when to pinch out and what to do and what not to do, apparently you make up your mind how many flowers you want on the plant, and then count up the leaf axils from the bottom, so that with those spindly tall Marston Georges, if he wanted to have, let's say, 5 plants, he would come up 5 leaves from the bottom and then pinch out above the node, above the leaf node, and then there will be buds form in the leaf axils, and he should have, if he left 5 leaves, he should have 5 flowers. I don't know how many he's going to leave. I will ask and we'll find out. But they're looking good. They will catch up. So there's another one that you've not seen before. Next we're going to go and have a look and see what Ron and Les has been doing in the last couple of weeks. Okay, we're on Ron and Les's plot now. These are the poms that I showed you last time that had been put in towards the end of April because they were getting so leggy. As you can see, the wire's been raised and the plants have grown on quite a bit. Again, I think they will probably be pinched out 3rd week of June. Certainly talking to Les, I think it was Les, he said that you pinch out 10 weeks before the show date that you're aiming for. So now you know. Okay, let's just pan around and have a look on the rest of the plot, and we'll walk down the other end in a moment too. So as you can see, that's all been well planted out, plenty of space in between. It looks like somebody's been scampering about with a rotavator in between the rows, and everything's looking pretty good. Now I know very well that the main plants here were planted out on the 1st of June, same as me, so they've been in nearly a fortnight. Okay, now down at the far end of the plot, as you can see, we're down with the seedlings again. So if I pan round, we'll have a look right the way up from the other end, to the other end should I say. There we go. Now, I did notice that some of these as I walk down aren't seedlings, but perhaps I should just touch on what a seedling is. Now, when dahlias are cross-pollinated, enthusiasts will have a go at creating a new variety of, or new colour or whatever, of dahlia. They'll take two flowers and cross-pollinate them, and then make sure that the one that has been pollinated that's going to be kept is kept sterile away from any other plant, so that in the autumn there should be some seeds available. Now those seeds are planted in the early spring, and hence the name seedling. So they grow up, they're actually growing up from a seed, and so they should show the traits of the two parents, be a mixed dahlia of the two parents. Now, often whatever's created is absolutely horrible, or just doesn't do anything for anybody. It's no good for showing, so it'll end up on the compost heap. So just now and again a cross will be made that's absolutely lovely, and then that will be grown on to create some tubers. The next year there'll be cuttings taken, and then the stock will be multiplied on. Obviously you have to make an application to name a new variety, so normally seedlings only have a year and a number. So looking at some of these were, yes, they're 2014. These have obviously grown from seed earlier this year, and we'll see what happens later on in the year, how nice they are. So there we go, 13th of June, everybody's plants are in, well, nearly all of them are in, and looking pretty good. And you can see from the soil down here it's fairly beaten down. The thunderstorms have done their flattening act, so I would imagine they're going through hoeing and cultivating to get the ground back soft again. Okay, so that's it for today. It's one last look at my plot. I've been through and hoed. I've also top dressed with rock dust and the Q4 equivalent, and I've also given them a liquid feed of high nitrogen feed, which the one I can get hold of is Vitax Vita Feed 412. Now if you get ready, at the end of this sequence I've taken some stills of the fertiliser bags and packets. You'll notice that the liquid feed is a very pinky colour. I don't know what it is about liquid feed, you always seem to come out the same colour as it. If you use Miracle Grow, your hands are blue, and with this Vitax 412 your hands turn red. But anyway, good stuff. We've got some rain forecast for tonight, so that'll settle the top dressing in very nicely. I just hasten to add that the fertiliser I use is just what's available to me. I'm not making any recommendations or anything like that, apart from using a good quality feed, a liquid feed or whatever. So as I've gone through hoeing, I've taken off a lot of the dead leaves that are at the bottom of the plant. They only attract the slugs, so they don't need any help, do they? So with a little bit of luck, those are settled in now for another few days. I'll come and water them with just ordinary plain water in the next day or two. We'll see what the weather throws at us in the meantime. So there you go. Be ready if you want to stop the frame so you can see what it is I've been throwing around on my plants. I just should mention that at the beginning of next week I shall go through with a very light spray of insecticide to put off the aphids and so on that might think they're going to come and colonise my plants. I just want to make them unwelcome. So there we go. Okay, 17th of June, and we're here on somebody else's plot. This plot belongs to Arthur, and as you can see, he's got a lot of his plants out already. We've just been talking about stopping dates and so on and so forth, and you'll find, I'll show you them in a minute, all his large and giants are all in one place, and he's actually already pinched those out on the first week of June. Now, as for the rest of them, as you can see, the plants are a dozen or 15 of each variety, and what he does is he'll pinch out 3 plants a week. He's got to aim for a 6-week show season, so if he can stop 3 or 4 plants a week over 6 weeks, he should have flowers for that 6-week period. Now, thinking about how many flowers on a plant, large flowered dahlias, he allows 3 or 4 flowers per plant. Giants, no more than 3. Mediums, 5 or 6 flowers to the plant. And small decks, 7 to 8. Now, he doesn't actually grow palms, although I did just notice some when I walked down the garden. Just keeps a stock of them, and those, he says you can let all the flowers come on pom-pom dahlias. Obviously you don't want them to grow too big because of the size restrictions for showing. So there we go, that's another plot. I'll just go and look at his giants. Okay, different part of the garden. We're now looking at just the giants. You can see that they've all been planted out together, and they're actually in a special area with a bit of a framework over the top so that he can put covers over them quite easily if he wants to. You're looking at those, you'll find that some of them haven't actually been pinched out yet. That sort of harks back perhaps to what I was saying about the show season being 6 weeks, but he did just let me into a little secret in that he's going to try some of the giants with just 1 flower on a plant. So there we go. I'll just pan round onto this other bed that we're standing next to, just so that you can have a look. And as you can see, he's been through loosening the soil up, killing some weeds. There's some in flower there that still need pinching out. But there, that's another look at somebody else's plot. Now I'm going to have a quick look at the garden up here, because you may remember that my dahlia plants were in polytunnel. Well, Arthur puts his in and out in cold frames so that he can close the lid over them, but they're outside so they don't rush on too quickly. Now I think that he's probably right about that. Having put them in the polytunnel this year, I think it's been a bit too warm for them. So they really did grow on, of course, because you have to keep watering them. So they, as you may remember from just a couple of days ago, my plants are a lot further forward than these. Now these obviously have been grown for showing, so you know, Arthur's confident that they're going to be ready at the right time. So we're just going to have a look at his cold frames, and then I'll go and leave him in peace. So, quick look at the cold frames. As you can see, very big frames, a lot of plants put outside that are to make pot tubers and are just for stock and so on and so forth. And if I just pan round past the onion plot, he's bemoaning the fact that his neighbour's cats have been fighting in his onions just now, but there you go. At least they've not been in his dahlias. And there we have another great big cold frame, all full of dahlias ready for planting out. And as you can see, quite a few of them have come into flower already, and of course those will be pinched out at the appropriate time if they're ever planted out. Because he keeps a fair stock of all sorts of different plants, a lot of those will just go on to be pot tubers. Right at the beginning of making this video, in the first day's filming, I said I'd show you the dahlias that I'd bought from a British nursery. Well, I forgot to do that, and time's now moved on. It's now the 18th of June, and as you can see, these are some of the parent plants and some of the cuttings, and as you can see, they're not very good. I've been hit by powdery mildew. That disease came in with the dahlias that I bought from the English nursery, and it's done the plants no good at all. In fact, I've thrown one or two of them away. I think I shall end up throwing the rest of them away. I have got some better plants off these parents, and I'll turn the camera around so you can see those. These are the other cuttings that I've taken from those sick parents, and as you can see from this leaf shown here, don't look well particularly. I have been treating the powdery mildew with a few different chemicals. The first thing I tried was bicarbonate of soda. I think that was something my father used to use, but anyway, a quick check on the internet showed that people, certainly in New Zealand, had been using it on powdery mildew for dahlias. The other thing that I've tried using is Bordeaux mixture, which is a copper solution. It comes out a bright blue colour, and I've actually been brushing the leaves of these plants with that. Well, you can see they're alright, they're nothing special at all, and there is a little bit of deformity with some of them. If you look at these leaves that I'm just zooming in on now, they don't look well, they don't look good. We'll just see how they go, and if they don't improve, I shall probably just throw them away, or maybe I'll keep them and see if we can make some pot tubers from them. In the meantime, I'll look up and see whether powdery mildew is actually transmitted through the tubers, because if all I'm doing is storing up for a load of trouble next year, I won't even bother keeping them. I shall just bin them. Subsequent to the shooting yesterday, where I was looking in Arthur's garden, I had a conversation about how long flowers take to appear on dahlia plants, so that where you've got just the tiniest little bud showing, sort of like half a little fingernail size, Arthur seems to think that giants take about 35 days to fully open from that point. And then I was talking to Les as well about flowering times, and he said generally for the smaller varieties 23 to 26 days he seemed to think from the time there's a small bud visible to the flower actually being open properly. So that's a little bit more information, but what both of them said was that you need to get to know the varieties, get to know which varieties you're growing, and take your own notes, so that if you want to know in future years how long it takes for a flower to come from just a little bud to being fully open, then you've done your own research. So take your own notes for that, and get to know your varieties. One interesting little point that Arthur made was that the slower the flower takes to form, the better it is for showing. The more petals form, and the better it is for showing. So if you can slow things down, obviously, you know, you would do to get a better flower. But an interesting tip that I picked up last year was that if you want to speed up a flower and get it to its full potential just before a show, is water it. Loads and loads of water. They are very thirsty, very greedy plants, and you'll find that keep on watering them and you can actually speed the flower opening so that the blooms are ready for a particular event, a particular show. So for instance, if you were doubtful that something was going to be open for a show next Saturday and this is Monday, you could probably speed it up a little bit by giving the plant plenty of water. And I mean, water it in the morning, water it in the evening, and give it a good 10 litre watering can each time. They don't mind being watered, and like they don't mind being fed. They're very greedy plants. So I'm going to turn this into a video now to put on YouTube. The same people that asked me whether I was going to actually make another video have also been pestering for when I'm going to have it on when I'm going to have it ready and put it on the internet. So what I've decided is that I'll publish this one now, and then I'll look at flowering on a third video to be produced later on this year. Okay, we'll meet again soon.